Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome everyone. Today I will discuss with you two topics. One, production possibility curve and consumer surplus. Production possibility curve means the curve which shows the production possibility of the production in a country during a given period of time when we assume that the factor of production are fully employed and even the technology are constant. And after completion of this module, you will able to learn the concept of production possibility curve, two, shift in production possibility curve, uses of production possibility curve, consumer surplus, the measurement of consumer surplus, limitation of consumer surplus. So let us discuss what is production possibility curve. Production possibility curve shows the maximum possible combined output of two goods that can be produced during a given period of time. Possibility of two goods through a curve. It shows what can be produced with given resources and technologies. Here, technologies and other factor of production we assume constant, and labor and capital are fully employed. It helps us to understand the problem of scarcity better. Production possibility curve helps in analyzing how individual producers and other economic agents use the scarce resources to meet the unlimited needs or wants in a country, in economy. All points of the production possibility curve represents points at which the economy operates at its full productive capacity. Production possibility curve depends upon some assumption. While we construct the production possibility curve, certain assumptions are to be made. We have to assume that the economic resources are available during a given period of time are in fixed quantity. Labor and capital we are using in a fixed quantity. 2. The economic resources can be used to produce only two categories of goods. Means only two category of production goods are produced, or this is limitation of production possibility curve, that we cannot show more than two goods in a production possibility curve. Some inputs are better used in producing one of these classes of goods rather than the other. Technology remain unchanged for the given period of time. The economy is operating at full employment. There is no unemployment in the economy. We have to assume that all factors of production are fully employed and achieving the full production or full capacity of production. Further, we'll discuss production possibility curve, that production possibility schedule, it can be seen from the following table. We'll discuss with the help of following table, because a production possibility schedule can be shown with the help of a table, where one column will represents the production possibility, and second and third shows the output produced in that country. So production possibility curve A here. With given resources, an economy can produce either 1 ton of X or 14 tons of Y. These are, see this table. The first column A, B, C, D, E and F are showing the possibility of production. A combination X 0 and Y 15, meaning if we use all factor of production in a country to produce these commodities, and if you produce only Y, then we can produce only 15 units of the commodities. B, if X1, then it will 14. C 2 12, D 3 9, E 4 5, and 5 0, 5 and 0. Meaning why? As the quantity of X increases, the quantity of Y start decreasing. With the given resources, an economy can produce either 1 of X or 14 tons of Y. We have seen with the help of this table. Similarly, if economy want to produce 5 tons of X, it has to completely forego the production of this Y, for example sugar, and this is maybe wheat. Now this can be explained with the help of a curve. This curve shows the production possibility curve. PP is the production possibility curve. This PP is the production possibility curve, which shows the production possibility of two goods, say Y, X for example wheat, Y for example sugar, the combination of these two goods. If we forego all this and wheat, then we can produce OP only, this Y commodity sugar, or we have option to produce only OP, that wheat, this side x-axis. Whereas this L M point or maybe other point of this PP production possibility curve shows the optimum use of all resources. We assume that all resources are fully employed, and then we can produce this L, M and any point. But the point here to be noted that as we produce more unit of, for example, Y, then there will be less unit of X. We cannot produce simultaneously both goods at higher quantity. If you want to produce more unit of X, for example here M here, then the quantity of Y will reduce. So production possibility curve shows the maximum combined output of two goods. Second, in the graph we have already seen L and M point are on the curve representing the full utilization of resources. These L and M are so that we are using full utilization of the resources. and the point inside the curve, this N, this shows underutilization of the resources. Means the economy is not using the resources at the optimum level. There is underutilization of resources. Maybe there is unemployment. Now see, shift in production possibility curve. When production of these quantity will increase, for example say X or Y, as the quantity, for example earlier we are producing this, and maybe there's an advancement of technology or something else, when the production of X and Y will increase, the production possibility curve will shift. This production possibility curve shift to here, F to F1, A to A1. This is due to this curve shift due to increase in production. When production of a country will decrease, then production possibility curve will be shift left hand side. Left hand side shifting of production possibility curve shows the decrease in quantity produced, the combination of quantity produced in a country during a given period of time. Whereas when this curve will shift right hand side, it means there is a increase in quantity produced in a country during a given period of time. So production possibility curve will shift due to increase in quantities produced, to maybe improvement in the quality of resources, skillness, or maybe the due to advancement of technology. Next, what are the uses of production possibility curve? Production possibility curve explain whether economy is utilizing the full resources efficiently or not. Through production possibility curve, we can analyze that whether economy is using its resources efficiently or not, whether there is inefficiency, whether there is unemployment in the economy or not. Second, knowledge of economic efficiency. 3. Production possibility curve helps in analyzing the distribution of national income. National income is the sum of rent, wage, interest, and profit. Meaning why? The price paid to the factor of production. For example, for the use of labor we are paying wages. For the use of capital we pay interest. For the use of land we pay rent, and profit to the entrepreneurship. When we combine all these payment made to all the resources, we can have a national income. So through production possibility curve, we can analyze that the distribution of national income is proper or not. And choice of techniques, or production of techniques. We have two production technique, labor and capital. Labor means more, labor techniques means more use of labor and less use of capital. Whereas capital intensive technique means more use of capital and less use of labor. So which techniques will be appropriate in a country, we can analyze, we can discuss with the help of production possibility curve. For example, the country which is capital intensive capital surplus country, that country must use more of capital and less of labor. Whereas the labor surplus country like India, we must use more labor techniques, labor intensive techniques as compared to capital intensive techniques. So this was about briefly what is the production possibility curve. Now let us discuss next topic is consumer surplus. Consumer surplus. Consumer surplus first time developed by, well, this is the Alfred Marshall. Although there are two techniques to analyze to discuss the consumer surplus, one Marshall techniques and second one Hickson techniques. We'll focus on Marshall techniques. The concept occupies an important place not only in economic theory, but it is also very important economic policies of the government and decision making of the monopolists. Consumer surplus are generally ready to pay more for the goods than they actual pay for them. Means the difference between a ready to pay and actual payment. For example, if you want to purchase something, and for that, if you pay, for example, 100 rupees, you are ready to pay 100 rupees, but your actual payment is rupees maybe 80. We'll discuss through an example. You were ready to pay rupees 100, but actual payment made by you only 80. Then the difference between willingness to pay and actual payment. Willingness to pay 100, actual payment 80. So 100 minus 80 is consumer surplus. The extra satisfaction which consumer get from their purchase of goods is called Marshall called is the consumer surplus. According to Marshall, when we purchase something, we sacrifice something, and when you will purchase, then definitely that will gives you some satisfaction, some happiness. Now what you sacrifice, that is money. How much you sacrifice, that depends upon you. But after purchasing that commodities, you can have a happiness, you can have a, that there is some satisfaction. So how much you sacrifice, how much you will get satisfaction, the difference between that is the consumer surplus. When sacrifice is equal to your satisfaction, it means you are in equilibrium position. Consumer is in a equilibrium position. When sacrifice is more than satisfaction, then it means you are in a loss. Listen carefully. When sacrifice is less than satisfaction, more than satisfaction, sacrifice more than satisfaction, it means in a loss. But when sacrifice will be less than your satisfaction, it means the consumer is in a surplus. What you sacrifice, what you gain, if the difference is more, means you have more satisfaction, you are getting more gain from that product as compared to your sacrifice, it means this is called the consumer surplus. But this consumer surplus is based on some assumptions. Maybe first assumption is utility can be measured in terms of cardinal numbers. There are two measurement techniques to measure the utility. Utility we mean, we'll discuss in next chapter. wants satisfying power of a commodity is utility. Wants satisfying power of a commodity is called utility. The happiness, the satisfaction derived from a commodity is called utility. So here we assume that utility can be measured in terms of number. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Means when you will consume a product, you can express that I have this much of utility. Numbers 10. For example, if you drink a glass of water, and after drinking that glass of water, you can say that yes, I have a satisfaction equal to 10 or 20. So first assumption is that utility can be measured in terms of number. Second, the marginal utility of money remain constant. Marginal utility of money remain constant means utility of a commodity can be expressed in terms of money. Utility of product can be expressed in terms of money, and we assume that marginal utility of money remain constant. Third, we assume that every commodity is an independent commodity. Every commodity is an independent commodity. It has no substitute. It has no substitute. It means utility of a commodity cannot be influenced by the utility of another commodity. Independent utility. Even we assume that income, taste and preferences of the consumer also remain constant. There is no change in the income of the consumer. There is no change in the taste and preference of the consumer. And lastly, the concept of consumer surplus based on the demand curve or marginal utility. It is based on the demand curve or marginal utility. So let us discuss in detail. Consumer surplus is equal to the consumer is ready to pay and what his actual pays. Consumer surplus, he is ready to pay 100 rupees, I have already explained, and if he pay only 80 rupees, then 100 minus 20, this is the consumer surplus. When sacrifice is equal to gain, sacrifice here the money. When you pay money, it means you are sacrificing. Gain means satisfaction. So sacrifice equal to gain, consumer will be in equilibrium. But when sacrifice will be more than gain, consumer can be in a loss. And if sacrifice will be less than satisfaction, it means consumer will be in a surplus. So consumer surplus is derived from the law of diminishing marginal utility. We can explain the consumer surplus with the help of diminishing marginal utility. Diminishing marginal utility means as we purchase more and more unit of the commodity, the marginal utility of the product start diminishing. As we purchase more of good, its marginal utility goes on diminishing. The consumer is in equilibrium when marginal utility is equal to given price. Although Marshall says that the price which we pay for the use of the product is equal to marginal utility. The price which we pay for the use of the product, that is equal to its price. So the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay for an additional unit of a good and the market price that actually pays is referred consumer surplus. the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay for an additional unit of the commodity and the market price that he actually pays is the consumer surplus. Consumer surplus can be defined the difference between what consumer would like to pay for a product and what they actually pay. Now, for example, we can explain with the help of this table the quantity he purchased 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for example, and willing to pay maybe 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Means if you want to purchase more and more unit of the commodity, then he will ready to pay, he will ready to purchase more unit if the price will decrease. He is willing to pay. If he purchase 1 unit, then he is willing to pay on 7 rupees. But 2, 6 actual payment 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Willingness to pay 7, but actual payment, for example, 2 rupees. So this is total equal to 27. Actual payment 12. So this is 15, called is consumer surplus. Consumer surplus, or with the help of this example, the following table explain the measurement of the consumer surplus. In a case of X commodity, the price of X we assume is 20 rupees. Number of units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For example, margin utility 30, 28, 26, 24, 22, 20, 18. Means when consumer is consuming more and more unit of a commodity, the marginal utility start diminishing. 30, then 28, then 26, 24, 22, 20, 18. The price 20, 20, 20, 20. Consumer surplus 10. Here this minus this, this minus this, this minus this, and 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0, and maybe minus. We can see from the above table that when consumer surplus, consumer consumption increases from 1 to 2 unit, the marginal utility diminishing 30 to 28. 1 to 2 and marginal utility 30 to 28. And his marginal utility goes diminishing as he increases his consumption of goods of X. As he, for example, this is X, as he increases the number of unit of the commodity, the marginal utility start diminishing. Thus, given the price of rupees 20 per unit, the total surplus which the consumer will get is 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0 is equal to 30. Now, measurement of consumer surplus. The concept of the consumer surplus can also be explained with the help of diagram graphically. We'll discuss in detail through this diagram that, for example, here this is, sorry, here x-axis we have quantity, y-axis the price, and this is the demand curve or marginal utility curve, which shows that higher the price, lower the demand, lower the price, higher will be the demand. Or when the consumer consume more and more unit of the commodity, the marginal utility start diminishing, downward sloping of this curve. Consumer is ready to pay 0 to P0. Actual payment is P1. So difference between OP0 minus OP1. So the area between the demand curve and price line, this is P1 is the price line, is the total consumer surplus, shaded area. This is the total consumer surplus. The area between demand curve and the price line is the total consumer surplus. But the consumer surplus cannot be measured precisely because of it is difficult to measure the marginal utilities of different units of the commodity consumed by the person. In the case of necessaries goods, the marginal utility of early units are large. In such case, the consumer surplus always infinite. When we consume the first unit of the commodity or maybe necessaries goods, the utility will the utility margin utility will be high. In such case, consumer surplus is always infinite. Consumer surplus cannot be measured in terms of money even, because the marginal utility of money changes as purchases are made and the consumer stock of money diminishes. Whereas Marshall assumed that the marginal utility of money remained constant. But this assumption is unrealistic. Even the marginal utility of money can be expressed in terms of numbers according to Marshall, or the theory of consumer surplus. Again, this is not possible. Hicks says no, we cannot measure the utility in terms of numbers. We can just rank the utility. We cannot measure in terms of numbers. Even every commodity cannot be say independent. There are dependency on other commodities. Commodities are not independent. Even the income, fashion, technology, etc. cannot be assumed constant. So there is no simple rule for driving the utility scale of articles which are used their prestige values like diamond. The concept can be accepted only if it is assumed that utility is measured in terms of money. Otherwise, whereas modern economists believe that this cannot be done. This cannot be done. Now, application or uses of consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is uses for designing government policies and implementing the welfare program. When government design the policies and sometimes implement the welfare program, then the knowledge of consumer surplus is very, very important. And consumer surplus helps in designing and implementing the welfare program. It also helps the monopolist in fixing the price of a commodity. It also advocates for international trade. It helps in international trade. Which commodity we must use, but import, and which commodity we must export. And consumer surplus, lastly, can also be used to measure the health of an economy. Health of an economy can be measured through, or this consumer surplus helps to measure the health of an economy. So let us conclude this chapter. We have studied that how the production is optimized with the help of production possibility curve. Production possibility curve shows the possibilities of production in a country, in an economy during a given period of time, by assuming that all factors of production are fully employed and the technology be constant. use or production possibility we have discussed, the concept of the consumer surplus and its measurement or its uses or its applications we have done. We have also studied various limitations of the consumer surplus. So thank you very much for your attention.